$12.5 billion. That's how much Pakistani elite alone own in luxury Dubai real estate. $200 billion sitting quietly in Swiss banks, confirmed by Pakistan's own ex-finance minister, who is now deputy prime minister, on the record. And every single year, the IMF says this country is bleeding out 6.5% of its entire GDP, not to war, not to disaster, to its own ruling class. Dear friends, this is not a story about missing tax revenue. This is a system error that has altered the very DNA of a society. In the next few minutes, you will see how a nation's elite quietly bleeds its dry and gets away with it every time. You'll find out how the honest people, officers, they get punished, and the corrupt, not only they get promoted, but they get unlimited extensions. You'll discover why Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Pakistan, and to some extent India, all reach from the same escape hatch with the same ending. And you will see why one country in South Asia has at times managed to bite back while the others simply can't. By the end, you'll understand something most people get completely backwards about how and when reform actually happens. Now I'll talk about DNA mutation. While South Asian countries beg international lenders for single-digit billion-dollar bailouts to keep the lights on, their own ruling classes hold literal empires abroad. This isn't a hypothetical. It's the Dubai unlocked leak. Real names, real addresses, real billions in dollars. And here's what should really disturb you. Around 22,000 Pakistanis sitting in very important positions of state hold dual nationality. How much sincerity can you expect from someone running a ministry and departments when this country, it isn't even their home? It's their pasture, their grass field, a place to amass wealth quietly before heading back to the real home, the townhouse in London, the villa in Toronto, the Western life waiting on a second passport. Why does a fruit vendor in Lahore or a rickshaw puller in Dhaka or Colombo keep paying his taxes on time while the people managing his country's institutions are already halfway out the door? When the average citizen watches this VIP catch and release theater, a devastating signal is transmitted. And what's that? Honesty is a trap for the weak. You know, human nature is identical across the globe. Human. In developed welfare states, robust institutions make corruption high risk and low reward. But Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and to some extent India, extraction is zero risk, infinite reward. India isn't immune either, but its courts and election commission and media, you know, it have at critical moments clawed back ground the others never even attempted. We'll come back that when bypassing the law becomes the only rational path to survival, the social contract itself dissolves. The clean suffer, the corrupt thrive, and a nation's progress is choked at the root before it even begins. So if the people at the top don't even see this as home, where exactly does the money go once it leaves the treasury? Now I'll talk about capital drain and de-industrialization. The second system error is the active deconstruction of productive industry through capital flight and political vanity. Economic planning here isn't driven by public utility, but it is driven by the unchecked discretionary powers of prime ministers and chief ministers and other local political leaders. They announce multi-billion-dollar mega projects without any feasibility study. Why? Because the announcement itself is the product, a vehicle for kickbacks, not development. And because the domestic system offers no legal stability, corrupt elites can't safely reinvest that wealth at home. So it flees offshore havens, offshore real estate, and foreign accounts, starving local banks and local businesses of investment. But some of it doesn't even leave the country. It just leaves the reach of ordinary citizen across Pakistan's biggest cities. Prime urban land has quietly been carved into exclusive gated housing societies, allotted not through open market competition, but through institutional privilege. You understand what I'm saying? Land that could have built factories or hospitals or even educational institutions instead becomes another asset class for people who were already never going to lose. The pattern repeats region wide. Sri Lanka's vanity infrastructure, built on high interest foreign debt, triggered a historic sovereign default. Bangladesh's industrialists siphon export earnings through trade misinvoicing. In Pakistan, capital flight has driven severe de-industrialization. Safer to park money abroad than build a factory at home. And I'm showing you various news clippings to substantiate my argument and points which I'm telling you. And this isn't just a balance sheet problem. When productive industry dies, so do jobs. Pakistan now sends out its own talent as an export instead. Doctors, engineers, IT graduates leaving in a record number, not for opportunity abroad, but because there is nothing left at home. A country slowly exporting the people who could have fixed it. This reaches its ugliest peak in the energy sector. Through independent power producers, IPPs commonly known, a network of those plants is owned directly by very influential people like politicians, feudal elites and their frontmen and many hidden faces. Through opaque, decades-long contracts, the state pays astronomical capacity charges, billions for electricity that's never even generated. This has birthed, a circular debt of over 2 trillion rupees. A nation kept literally in the dark to keep its elite rich. So who is supposed to stop this? Now, let me say something about the illusion of accountability. To understand why reform keeps failing, look at the machinery that's supposed to prevent all this. The civil service. In Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, accountability isn't a neutral process. It's a political weapon. The bureaucracy has been stripped of its independence. The fatal bug, absolute political control over civil servant postings and transfers. No independent merit-based board, just the arbitrary whims of prime ministers and the chief ministers and local political masters. Sign the corrupt project, keep your seat. Refuse, and within days you are transferred to a punishment posting nobody wants. Meanwhile, the officer who signed gets the lucrative chair, the foreign trip, the next promotion, and unlimited extensions. So can anything actually break this cycle? South Asia's anti-corruption bodies exist to catch thieves in theory. In practice, they are political weapons used by whoever holds power. When the government changes, yesterday's accused get VIP treatment from compliant courts. New evidence quietly appears. A photo op replaces a verdict. A biometric formality at airport stands in for what should have happened in a courtroom, while yesterday's reformers go to jail. India runs the same playbook, far from perfectly, but its institutions have shown some capacity to bite back, even against a sitting power. That doesn't make India clean. It makes the disease less terminal. Is this just how it has to be? Actually, no. One country in the region proved otherwise. Now let's talk about the South Korean mirror. To believe South Asia is doomed to perpetual corruption is to ignore history. In the 1950s and 60s, South Korea wasn't a clean utopia. It was one of the poorest, most corrupt countries on earth. Its foreign aid routinely stolen. But South Korea didn't wait for saints. It rewrote the rules. The state tied every dollar of credit to strict export performance, failed to complete globally within a set window, and funding was cut and handed to a rival. No permanent cronyism, just brutal, rules-based discipline. Korea also insulated its economic bureaucracy from political interference, building meritocratic civil service pathways politicians couldn't even touch. Decades later, that same rules-based framework grew strong enough to jail both billionaire conglomerate chiefs and former presidents. The system started punishing extraction and rewarding production. It proves the disease is curable. So why hasn't Pakistan taken the same medicine? That's where this gets uncomfortable. Now, I'll talk about Pakistan. On paper, the fix is simple. Depoliticize the bureaucracy. Tie subsidies to export performance instead of political loyalty. Digitalize land records so no clerk or civil servant ever gets to demand a bribe again. So why hasn't it happened? Because in Pakistan, unlike 1960s Korea, there is no starvation forcing discipline. Please, I need your attention. Every time the extraction machine drives the economy off a cliff, a foreign patron shows up to refinance it. The IMF, Gulf states, Beijing, and the elite gets bailed out before the bill comes due. We broke down the West's game plan for Pakistan in a recent video. I'm giving you the link in the description. That will, it's very interesting video. I hope you'll watch it. There is no external threat forcing the ruling class to unite around national survival the way Korea did. And the reforms this chapter demands would require the very people benefiting from the system, including entrenched non-political power centers with their own stake in the status quo. I hope you got what I'm saying. They voluntarily surrender their income stream. Nobody. This has never happened voluntarily anywhere in history. So no, this isn't a call for South Asia to simply adopt Korea's playbook as if reform were a policy someone just needs to sign. Reform, doesn't arrive when the elite grows a conscience. It arrives when the machine runs dry. No more capital left to flee. No more taxpayers left to squeeze. No more talent left willing to stay to be extracted from. And look closely, that process has already begun. The same brain drain, the same capital flight, I'm showing you the evidence, the same shrinking tax base. These aren't just symptoms anymore. These are the first signs of the well running dry. When the yield stops flowing upwards, the incentive to protect the system disappears with it. Not because anyone chose virtue, but because there was nothing left worth protecting. South Asia isn't poor because it lacks talent or ambition. It's poor because its institutions were built to reward extraction over production, and the people paying for that design have not yet run out of things to give. Korea already proved the fix exists. The real question is how much more a country can lose before its elite simply has nothing left to hand over, and whether by then there is still a country left worth reform. Thank you very much for your time. Dear friends, I'm Naeem Sidhu. I hope you'll subscribe, you'll like, share, and more importantly, I'm eager to listen from you in the comment section. Thank you again.